Good afternoon, everyone. We have a bit of human delay in terms of the panel chair is not here, and we only have one presenter as against some other presenters. So tentatively, I will chair this panel and we'll have the first presenter present for us. We are already gone by 10 minutes and we have to get things going. Are we clear? Please, can we have our seats? Thank you so much.
Is the presenter?
Yes. You're presenting. Oh, you're still presenter. Okay, so just to confirm, do we have Emmanuel here? Oluwasegun here? Oluwasegun, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, yes. Okay, is Festus here? Is Monsurat? Yes. And Taiwa Adeliji and Kenny Salami. So let's have in that order of the presentation. We would have Oluwasegun go first. Please, you have 12 minutes to present your group. Oh, Emmanuel, please. Emmanuel, please.
Okay.
You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Thank you so much, sir. So my name is
Wait. Sorry, hold on. Sorry, Emmanuel. Emmanuel will go first.
Okay.
Sorry, let Emmanuel.
Hello.
Emmanuel will go first. Can you hear me?
Okay, no problem, sir.
Yes, let's follow according to the name of the program. Let Emmanuel go first. Thank you. You can present for me, please.
Can you see?
No, that's it.
All right, so my first question.
Yes.
All right, so good morning once again.
And
Okay. Okay, no problem, sir.
So my name is Emmanuel Fuasia, and today I'm discussing a project I'm currently working on, and I hope that I can get feedback so that I can reinforce the arguments of this project. I feel my work is African Studies and the Fertility for the Decolonization Project. So I will just want to give sketch on the keywords that are central to this reading. So the central features of African studies it's calls on the need to focus on African and Afro-inspired tangible and intangible materials. It explores an interdisciplinary approach, focusing mainly on disciplines in the social sciences and the humanities. And African studies also lay emphasis on epistemic freedom, following the years of marginalization that has enabled the study of Africa and African materials in authentic ways. So that's the key feature of any way you want to talk about African studies. Now, so another keyword central to this research is the notion of decolonization. We are talking about decolonization. Most scholars want to first of all tell you what decolonization is not. For Gasheni and Tumi Falola, they talk about the fact that decolonization as transformation is misleading. For a variety of reasons, it does not address the condition of the oppressed as lettered out by the oppressor and the imbalances in power and knowledge production. The same also about Chimakuna, who talks about the fact that you should not see decolonization as an organization, because it only means that this idea can only work for Africa and export it out. So it means that the notion of universalization of ideas is not possible because of decolonization. But personally, I don't see decolonization as a buzzword. We just use it as if we are making sense of what we are doing, as if it is translating into something in our lives and all. So this is why I love the interview with Sabelu by Duncan Imagine says that the issue is that the decolonization expressed by our lips differs from the decolonization that comes from within as a revolutionary concept that speaks about rehumanization. It's a fundamental planetary project. So it goes beyond Africa. It talks about our humanity. And so I want to ask, are we really decolonizing? And what are we decolonizing? Now, most critics will come and say decolonization has some success stories. Language, of course. Now, Danfo is now in the English dictionary. Keke is also there, so we can see, fine, these people are beginning to listen to us. Chimakunan published a work on African logic, trying to show that to understand African thought systems, you need to be immersed in African logic. In politics, we have various kind of ideas coming up, we have Ubuntu and all the rest. Sexuality, gender studies are beginning to focus on our gender and see that, oh, once upon a time, the Bible said, man shall not marry man. Today, the Pope is defending that out. So we are falling back on our culture and trying to put a barricade against the extension of this colonized ideas from it impressed on us. The same thing with curriculum. They will tell you that yes, we have colonized the curriculum, history. Yes, we want history to, some will say, until the antelope learns to tell the story, the story will always glorify the hunter also. Now there's a decolonization trend where we are beginning to revise our ethnographic materials and bring out our own stories by ourselves. Now enter the word philosopher with the bad news. Friedrich Nietzsche is one of my favorite philosophers. I will say that what I understand by philosopher is terrible explosive in the presence of which everything is in danger. Let us just cut the chase. The decolonization project is a failure. That is my position. That's what I'm arguing. It has not translated into any tangible thing. Now, next slide. That is my conclusion. Now, here are the premises. Number one, the colonized decolonizer factor involves the process of unlearning and relearning. We are first of all colonized. 100-level students at this particular moment is undergoing colonization because they are taught, they are using texts and every idea the same way their teachers have those ideas. So the colonization project actually involves you, first of all, unlearning those processes, then having to relearn new concepts. So you are first of all colonized. Let us start with that abolition. Now, the second reason why decolonization fails is because of sharp philanthropy. This is what Friedrich Engels refers to the kind of aid that Western nation gives to African nation. They call it sharp philanthropy. They call it aid. What they take in return is much more than what they have put in. So these people decide the kind of curriculum that they are going to fund. They decide the kind of project that they are going to fund. They decide the kind of people that will help the project that they want to fund. And our libraries, our printing presses are powerless to compete. Now you go and publish in a Taylor and Francis journal and your paper is hiding behind a paywall. It does not even reach the people that should read and have their minds changed. So what are we decolonizing when we still rely on them? How many, for those of us who have departmental journals, how many European scholars are published in our own journal? But before you get promoted here, you have to cite the number of Taylor and Francis and say that here. What are you decolonizing? Now, shall we now decolonize at infinitum? Now you say, okay, let us keep it. When? What are the markers? When you take a look at the Sustainable Development Goals, there's a timeline. The Millennium Development Goals started in 2000 and ended 2015. So at the end of these goals, they sit down and say, okay, what are the success stories? What have we gained? How can we improve? Okay, what can we build on? What kind of projects can we bring in to build on what was before? In the case of decolonization, we have not even sat down and said, okay, what have we achieved? What can we build on? We just keep on decolonizing. This has led to a gulf, a large gulf between the town and gown. Because we are here in the four walls of this Akoka University. We are here, we are talking. How does this talking translate into policies that will affect the ordinary man walking on the street of Nigeria? We are just speaking big grammar. We speak decolonization and we think that, oh yes, this person has arrived. There's also a surge in academics. Look at our, if I have to ask, this is an attitude towards, let's say, traditional African religion as as an illustration. Nearly everybody here, nobody will profess to be a traditionalist, either a Christian or a Muslim at all. And so if you want to study these ethnographic materials, you have to go to the shrines. You have to do interviews, conduct interviews. You find academics saying, no, it's against my faith. Whose faith? The colonized faith. Now, what all this leads to is the problem of the Evoluis and the Derasins. These are Africans that they aspire to be like the colonized, but knowing fully well that they cannot reach that level, they are caught in between. They are seen as, oh, is above us by the regular community that they come from, and they are also seen as the other by the Europeans that they want to be like. So at the end of the day, I have to bring this discussion to an end and tell us that when we go, after all the grammar that we have talked about colonization, it's all empty. We have not done anything. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for that succinct presentation. I guess sit currently with some of the ideas projected by Olufemi Taiwo in the work. And for the sake of time, I might just read one or two sentences from as well, because as you were speaking, I put down. He said decolonization presents itself in number of ways. Any aspect of ex-colony that mirrors what was there during the colonial period is treated as evidence of continuing colonization. Any institution that can be traced to colonial time must be shown once colonization has suddenly ended. The ultimate rebellion claim is that the colonization is complete only after all forms of domination are overturned. In this way, decolonization is equated to human emancipation. And this is why some people speak of the myth of decolonization in Africa. I leave you to look for the main part, and that's on page 3. We would have the next speaker come up. According to the program outline, it's Olusegun. Olusegun would have your presentation, 12 minutes. Olusegun, are you there? Okay, while he gets
Yes, I'm here, sir.
Okay. You have the floor, please.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me share my screen.
Yes.
Sorry, sir. I am trying to share my screen, but it's saying the host disabled attendance screen sharing. Hello?
Wait, cool. Yes. You have the floor now. Try now. Could you try now?
Okay. Okay, thank you. Can we all see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Oluwasegun Ogunlaike. I'm just like the former presenter spoken massively on being practical about decolonization. So I'm treating this from the angle of being practical about what our heroes are doing. The term heroes, when you look at the term heroes, you might want to define it in several ways. But in this aspect, I'm speaking about political leaders. So the bone of my contention, let me start with the bone of my contention is that when we look at the life that these heroes have or these political leaders have lived, what we currently have in Nigeria is just a cyclical presentation of the past. There is nothing different. In fact, if you look at in terms of fuel subsidy during Babangida's regime, it was still the same thing. So they just come, implement the same policies. So that means that Nigeria is not growing, and Nigeria the way the country is, the system, the political landscape is just a representation of what the past leaders have laid down. So my article examines how these unresolved failures of Nigerian early political leaders continue to shape and distort the country's contemporary governance. So to do this, I'm using a historical, descriptive, and analytical method. Then my research question and objective is, why does Nigeria's political present replicate the mistakes of the past? The the research method, or let me say the theoretical framework I'm using, is Jackie Derrida's ontology, which speaks to the fact that Nigeria is being haunted by what he calls spectre. So Derrida's spectre of mass, he says societies are always influenced by the ghost of the past, which he calls spectres, that haunt their present realities and shape decisions, institutions, and identities. In the context of the Nigerian state, the unresolved legacies are ghosts of the early political leaders that continue to haunt the present realities, with current leaders serving as the tool to continue the impunity. The past leaders have created an ideological spectre for others to follow. So, when you look at the Nigerian society, you see several things reoccurring. You see protests, you see abuse of human rights, you see corruption, you see mismanagement of funds, you see ethnic bigotry, you see religious sentiment, all these things. There is nothing new. So the current political administration we have in the Fourth Republic as is already following the steps of the past political leadership, those in the first, second, and third republic. And this is the same thing that will continue because there's an ideological spectre that has already been in place that keeps on haunting Nigeria as a landscape. So like I said, political cycles driven by unfinished historical business. Then I come here, I said haunted foundations, argument number one, colonial structures. Before we go ahead and even look at this current, or let's say from the First Republic, we need to talk about the colonial structures. What was the colonial structure as or is then? When we look at this, we look at the amalgamation of ethnic divisions institutionalized. We are seeing that during the 1914 amalgamation, we brought in the Southern and Western Protectorate. Both of these entities were not supposed to initially be even be brought into. But because the colonial masters that then wanted an ideology that would favor them, they brought these two different personalities, different identities, different cultures together. And when they brought this same thing, became a foundation for those that were coming in. When the First Republic came in, before the First Republic, when the First Republic came in, the same ideology they had was based on the foundation the colonialists had brought. So all through the first, second, third republic, this ideology has become something that has been sustainable. This ideology has become something they've upheld. The first, second, third republic, we've seen coups, we've seen instability, we've seen military takeovers, we've seen requests for secessionism. For instance, the Biafra, when you speak about Biafra, the quest to secede for Biafra has been during Yakubu Gowon's regime. Until then, till now, during Buhari's regime, we are still having, and we are still seeing some piece of it in Tinubu's regime. So when we look at this, we also look at embezzlement, look at abuse of human rights, even though we are not under military regime, but when you look at the protests, there's several protests that happened last year, and when you look at during Buhari's regime, that was the one of the NSAS movement. You see this same thing. For instance, I want to start this with what I have. So I said, for instance, when you look at the 1983 April protest, where, okay, sorry, 1986 killings in Ahmadu Bello University, where at least 20 students, when they were demonstrating against the killing, and they said Ali must go riot in 1978. This was under the military regime. What happened under Babangida's regime was that at least 20 students were killed in the process when they were peacefully demonstrating, and this same thing happened during the NSAS movement. Even though till now we don't, let me say allegedly, we don't have a succinct report that shows that a lot of people died in the process. But the tear gas, the dispersing of the people that are peacefully demonstrating their protest shows highly that the same thing, the same spectre keeps haunting Nigeria. And I said it here, I said, just like individualist theory of Mehmet, which says that colonial structures were built on individualism, and this same individualism keeps haunting the African system, the African detail. Nigeria is a part of Africa. So the argument to corruption across regime, I've spoken about military, civilian leaders repeating the cycle of corruption. Then I put examples, non-accountability of which government and its officers, religious and ethnic division. Of course, we can see what happened recently in Jos. We can see what happened recently, even in Benue State, which has an undertone of religion and ethnic division. Then we can see the NSAS, which I mentioned earlier, and fuel subsidy protest, continuity of impunity, then nostalgia for past failures. When the new president or when the new administration comes in, what they see is, oh, these are people that we need to suppress. These are people that we need to put on hunger, so that whenever we need whenever we're doing a political campaign, they can come up and vote for us because they need to be liberated. We need to give them liberation, and the liberation is that we need to give them food. We need to give them just basic things. We are not thinking about going beyond that. So and moreover, when you look at this video, you now see it as more successes. I've seen majority of my people, majority of friends complaining that what they need or what they want is the past leader. When we have, for instance, when Buhari came on board, we are saying, oh, we assuming we know, we would have let Jonathan still be in place. Oh, when Tinubu came on board, oh, assuming we know, Buhari is even more better. So these past failures, we are now in fact, we are now praising them, saying that this particular regime or this particular administration is even worse than the past failures. So that comparison in the first instance was built on the ideological spectre. This is what they want us to always believe. So that by the time anyone comes in or anyone proposes to come in, people will die to vote for them, even if the case was different in the past election. But the fact that there was rigging, there was election malpractices, shows sufficiently that this same thing is just a leg that has been haunting the Nigerian system, that has been haunting the Nigerian and economic system. When you look at dollar to naira depreciation, you see the same thing in the second and third republics. So these things are the same thing. Nigerian political leaders have nothing to offer. That is why I asked that the lives of the heroes, which we call political leaders, what has it done for us? It has not done anything for us. So in my conclusion, which I would go on briefly, I said the only way to resolve this present dysfunction is breaking the cycle. And how do we break the cycle? I recall during Babangida's regime, one notable action that Babangida's regime did, which I personally appreciated, was that he aimed at restoring political order. And how does it want to do that? Reviewing that politicians eligible to hold political offices must not be those that have held in between August 1975 and 1985. And also those that have been found guilty of corruption and embezzlement were banned from politics. So the only case for me, which I believe is that to break this cycle of spectre, this ideology spectre, is to ensure that all political leaders, either their offspring, either those that are close to them, must not be allowed to vote, must not be allowed to even participate in election, must not be allowed to even hold any political office. This is the best way that we find a different person entirely who has never been in this political position or who has never been in this political ecosystem to be the one to be elected. So that is just a summary of my paper. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Olusegun, for inviting. I really enjoyed your presentation, talking about the challenges of Nigeria, and citing some previous administration that also caused these same challenges we are talking about. Without wasting much of our time, yeah, the next person, I don't know if it's around, Mr. Dayamola Esther. So, is that around? So let's move to this is on this monster on Oladi.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ololade. 12 minutes. My name is Ololade Olawale, and this is actually my first attempt at a paper presentation. So I would welcome a nice comment and encouragement. So the topic of this paper is titled Knowledge, Attitude, and Practice of Marriage Couples Towards Child Adoption in Ibadan. It was limited to Ibadan Northwest local government. Because during the course of my research, I found out that we have a zonal office where married couples who are interested in child adoption can always go to and fill out the form. And it was interesting to note that legally you cannot adopt a child as a single person because the government believes that we need to have we need to be two parents, that is a mother and a father, to be able to legally adopt a child. So what do we mean by adoption? Adoption is the process whereby a person assumes the parenting of another, usually a child, from that person's biological or legal parents or parents, and in so doing transfer all the rights and responsibilities towards that child. The issue of child adoption is one that is quite sensitive, especially for we women. I stand to be corrected. Because you'll find out that there's so many married couples that do during the course of their marriage for 10, 15, 20 years, due to one reason or the other, they are unable to conceive, but they do not even welcome the option of adoption. And what could this reason be? One of which could be the attitude towards this child adoption. What do we mean by attitude? Attitude in this context is talking about the positive or the negative view of the marriage couples towards child adoption. And you'll find out that so many people have a sort of negative attitude, especially maybe not even from the parents themselves that intend to adopt, but the society at large. Because I was opportune during because of this research, I spoke to some of these women who some of them have not even decided, just come to find out what do I need to do legally if I want to adopt. And you find out that some of them they are not even convinced that they really want to adopt due to the fact that some of them are after the societal pressure or what the family members would say, Omolomo, so apologies to the non-Yoruba speaking people, like, oh, this child is not my biological child. And you find out that it's actually a very big problem because we have so many, take for example, where this research was carried out in Ibadan and the local government where this questionnaire was administered, we have several motherless baby homes, we have orphanages, and you find out that some of these children, we don't need a home to take them to. Because personally, I'm a teacher presently in Ibadan, and we have so many students in a government school, and we have so many students even in the school that they need this proper guidance because there are so many environmental factors at this home they're doing their best, but we can all agree that it is not like a child coming from a functional home where you have your mom, you have your dad looking after you, and it's not just in terms of the financial well-being now. We all know that our parents, it goes beyond just spending for us financially. We need to take care of our mental health to make sure that we're emotionally stable at that. So you find out that in most of these homes and orphanages, there are just so many children, and the people in charge, they are just doing the best that they can, waiting that one day somebody shows up and takes up, the responsibility of one child for and one child at a time. So this was actually one of the problems that I was able to encounter during the course of the study. And the objective of the study was to determine specifically what are the knowledge that this married couple have towards child adoption and examine the attitude of this married couples, bearing in mind that the marriage adoption can only take place by legally married couples, and then determine the practice of this married couples towards child adoption. It would be significant to note that the significance of this study would be of great importance to the married couples, our teachers, the social welfare, the government, even the people in our education sector, rather, because they need to have the right attitude towards this child adoption. And it starts from all of us. Say, for example, I personally I have a sister that had challenges giving birth. She was married for like 10 years before eventually she now had her own biological child. But even as at then, during because of this research, I was telling her, have you ever thought of adoption? She was like, And I'm like, it's not even about that. There are these children, they need a home. Like I understand, because of especially for we the Yorubas, apologies to the non-Yorubas, to say, oh, baby not be me, we know my bimo. But even while you are trying to like conceive biologically, you can just take a child off the street and give them the proper training that you would give to your own biological child as well. So I carried out the study with the aid of a questionnaire administered to parents, couples who were interested in giving this adoption. Because even though so many of them still didn't have the right attitude towards it, I just tried to sensitize them, spoke to some of them that I could get my hands on because they usually have days for meetings and all of that. So just for them to be able to have the right attitude to say, okay, child adoption is not actually a bad thing. They're training the child and you never can tell the child might just be something great in the future. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, moving on to the next presentation. Rethinking African studies in a global world. Demonizing methodologies and moving direction by time of the Kennedy Salami. Yes, check out.
That's not the question.
Okay, okay. So moving on to the question and answers. And before that, I want to respond to what Ms. Oladile, because I noticed that this process of child being adopting child, and it's always common in Africa, it's common in the world. Yeah, but the problem about this that people have psychological orientation about this thing that okay, this thing is my own. We adopted something and then that stuff has become yours. The people think that this thing is mine. I want to know the psychological orientation people have towards it because you said something the other time that Amodomo, people tend to differentiate something coming out of your body and something they are getting from somewhere. So now something happened for them to be taking something from somewhere. So in that regard now, you think that in the absence of something coming out of the body, with something bringing in, people have this psychological orientation that this thing is already mine. Because there's this stigmatization that this thing which this people basically come out of my womb like that. So I want to know the psychological orientation that for the negative and positive of this.
Okay, thank you for the introduction and introduction. And for the purpose of this presentation, it was just like a 10-12 way goal, etc. And from where you are coming from your own idea, I feel like there are so many ways by which we can look at it because there is the cultural aspect, the social aspect, and there is even the religious aspect, which was the whole body of the study. Because even in the religious aspect, we have some of our pastors or some of our imams that will even frown against it. Because, for example, when you want to adopt a child, it takes a lot mentally, psychologically. And some of these people, they will tell you, spiritually, that from the spiritual aspect. So that is why my study has presented that we need more sensitization. And that's why I mentioned that the significant was going to play a long role with the government. It starts with even their parents as educators, as mothers, as sisters, and all of that. Because socially, so many people, you might even have the right attitude, and people will discourage you like that. What are you thinking? Why would you want to? You don't know, because it takes a lot. You don't know the generation where that child is coming from. You don't know their history. It's a lot to think about. But at the end of the day, all you can do is can try your best. What you really know that okay, I need this thing. It's just a way to say instead of take for example, there's a popular actress that came out to say, oh, I celebrated my birthday. I don't have a child that probably I don't know maybe she was 60 years old or thereabout. So and she felt really bad because she was really good with no child. So I thought about it like, okay, all through this year, God trying to speak biologically, and it's not possible. If you take a baby, I mean, this baby, an innocent baby, take one thing or the other, found him or herself in a motherless baby home or an orphanage. and you train them up in, when you would train up your own biological child. I feel like she wouldn't have spent that birthday being so jolly to say, "Oh, I don't have a child," but the child would recognize you as their mother. For babies, especially for the ones that are not full mature, even if you decide not to say, "Oh, we are adopted," the child might never know. We have cases of people that, maybe it was until they were like of really big age that they found out that, "Oh, this person was not my biological mother or my biological father." So it just goes to show that we really need a lot of psychological reorientation, just like I suggested. And it starts from all of us. It's not something that one person, it's not something that a researcher can do. Starts in our homes, our schools, our organization, our company. Just need to let people have the right attitude and the right approach to take. This is some people culturally, some people think that it's happen. I will tell you, no, it's not about, we don't do that over here. So it is really diverse, and like I said, the study was limited to a particular local government environment. So I am not speaking in general now to say, "Oh, in Africa," because there are so many scholars in the US that have worked on child adoption. And some of these things, even legally, it has to do with different background. The laws that bind us in Nigeria might not necessarily bind adoption in the US. So that's my response.
Thank you. Yes. So, yes, but, yeah. Yes. Okay, and everything number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
My name is and I want to sincerely happy. I really looking at this from my own experiences, I want to design. I'm also trying to bring it from because I happen to meet a particular woman who had the next so he was and she was trying to look a solution. So many people are trying to go for child adoption. So in the course of, I don't know if you have it your study. In the course of going down to she gets done. And they come, kind of stress.
You ran away.
Child adoption. Not really that are willing to give. I really encourage people kind of processing, fitting, and the kind of government that shines. Number 2, I could ask I think it's probably for future purpose. It's good to have a kind of power and institutions so that it will be a kind of a reference so that if we even move back from where you are coming from, that only pick things and get it to make it more engaging. If not because the teachers will carry us along the line in lots of way. Now another thing is that in the area of your methodology, is it that people have not done the research existing literature on that particular field question, and if they have done it, there is doubt. There is something that we are bringing on the table that is quite different from what people have done before.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Everyone is the question Department of Law. So I have a question for not you, but for my teacher there. He is my teacher actually. So he was talking about decolonization, that is a futile endeavor. So my question is that the kind of decolonization you are trying to bring up, I consider it radical. So my question is that kind of radical decolonization, whereby in fact have been ensuring humanity even possible, considering how far we are taking in more of Western practices. Secondly, you use probably the example of Ifa, Jesus Christ, whereby you think probably Ifa, those that are married themselves to Western religion, they think probably Ifa is not a tenable religion. So would you think that should be under decolonization, considering the fact that culture evolved, we as people we evolve over the time, probably 1,000 years ago, we might not even have proper record of what we have been practicing as a religion. So is decolonization in that form, is it possible in our contemporary society? That's my three. No.
Okay, sorry, I thought I'm wrong. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Please, my question goes to the last presenter as well as the other over there. But let me start with you. Now, the issue of child adoption, I want you also to understand and the student. So, and I want you to look at it from the angle of culture. Now, the issue of adoption too is born on modernity. Let's look at it from the cultural perspective. In those days, our parents they give children out to their family members. And sometimes these children they grow up and they know nobody except, for instance, let me give a good example, and allow by me. It's not my father's name. His uncle adopted him because my father, according to him, he lost his father when he was 6 months old. So the man who took him over, his uncle who took him over, the day they asked him in school, "What's your name?" He said, "I'm Joshua Lau." And the man posted him. He was not married, a bachelor himself. So from there, my father now turned out to be like his first child. So, and you see, so sometimes the issue of adoption, that is aspect of adoption. But in our own modern setting, we believe that adoption must be legalized and sometimes cultural issue too. Because like somebody mentioned here that they say go and adopt. You mentioned it in your presentation. Some churches will say no, God will give you, or will just wait. You are doubting God, limiting the power of God. But it goes beyond that. Sometimes I have a couple who were very childless. On the back end of their mother, the mother took them to the orphanage and they saw a baby. The baby looked so beautiful, and the mother said, "Please, my son were adopted." She adopted it from his son who were married but without family. So eventually they adopted this for the call him Moyo. So what to the surprise of everybody, a couple of years after, this woman and I and the two of them they know them as their parents. So please try to look at it from the cultural aspect too. Sometimes some of these things before the Western civilization came, where there was element of adoption. Well, this was voluntary adoption anyway. Parents can give when they see couples not having children, you just give them a child from at a very tender age. Please, will you give this child to you? And the child grow up like my own father, giving a good example of my own dad. My father never knew his father, but he knew that man. That is uncle and his father. And all of us grow up to know this man. My grandfather, even though the children of this man is late man, we look at us as cousins. So that is it. So thank you very much. So please look at it from the pre-colonial time, how it was. Because you are mentioning your study area is Ibadan Northwest. So that is the more reason why you should go to pre-colonial time to know what really was this situation even before, because anything adoption today is modernity today. So my second question goes to Dr. Emmanuel. Now, we've been hearing this decolonization of it. And just like somebody saying now, is it not too loud? Because when you compare our setting to, say, India, India too was colonized. But India, if you look at their way of life, they were not culturally colonized. As we are speaking, I said this man is talking to us in English, and he wants us to be decolonized. Because I attended a conference organized by University of South Africa. We hosted that in Adeleke University. And one of the things the organizer said was that, why don't we teach in our own mother tongues? But is that possible in the Nigerian context? And that is why it goes to the second presenter. We talk about haunted foundation. You see, I love it so much. I like that phrase, haunted foundation. It's a major issue. Because here today, the moment you are talking, thank you. They want to know whether you are Yoruba or you. So this is a major issue. 400 ethnic groups batched together under one political entity. It's a problem. So that is why the issue of decolonization, to me, I want to know what is the difference between it and modernity. And we delineate decolonization and modernity. Because most of these things we are talking about, 65 years down the line, we are still saying decolonization. Yes, our people are jumping to the Western world. They are going en masse to the Western world. And even within Nigeria today, my students, I will tell them, where are you from? I'm from Ogun State. They will not even tell you where they come from. Eventually, where in Ogun State you come from? I come from Ijebu. Have you been with them? How old are you? I'm 20 years. It's a major issue. You got it. Thank you, sir.
My question is to Senator. I just want to ask a question that is there any concession given to a married person but have lost his spouse or her spouse on the adoption process? So I want to know, because I heard you saying that adoption is meant for married couples. What of those people that are married but they lost one, and maybe because of loneliness, that person wants to adopt? Maybe the children are grown up with God, and he or she just finds herself or himself being lonely and want to adopt a child. Is it possible?
According to my name is Eloy Komi. I'm second year PhD student at Brown University, and I have questions for three. So I don't know if I think some of my questions have already been said, but I'm going to go through them. So for the first speaker, this issue of decolonization. Personally, I had a whole class last semester, and I told them I do not buy into it. I do not believe in it. But I'm seeing how you presented it. I mean, I still do not believe in it, but I think my question to you is, if you're saying, oh, our effort in the decolonization has been futile, I think we should also, at least for those pushing decolonization, I think we should not just end the conversation as it has always been futile. What are actually steps to see that decolonization becomes fruitful? Again, I do not believe in it, but I think that beyond activity, we should also talk about, especially when you're talking about, oh, this is how it has failed. I think you should also talk about steps, ways in which it can become better or we can actually achieve it. I think that's like my comment or question to you. How can we do that? And then the second speaker, so I've always been very fascinated by this quality of colonization and colonization. And when you started your presentation, you started that with that foundation. And how it is colonization that brought us to where we are. I think that, and this has just been my thoughts as a PhD student, that we tend to do that duality a lot. There is an in-between. And the in-between of that is that we were an active participant, in colonization, whether we like it or not. Our local leaders were active participants in colonization. It wasn't just the white men, it wasn't just Britons, there was an in-between. We were there actively. So when we do this thing of putting this duality, you know, colonization and post-colonization, and it's the colonizers that did this to us. No, it was a collaborative effort as to what we are now. And I think, I don't know if that's something you want to explore or just think about. And then to the third speaker, I enjoyed your presentation. I enjoyed all your presentations. I think I was very fascinated by this idea of, you know, you were speaking and you said, you know, a functional home. And maybe because I'm thinking about this in a theoretical well, your perspective, right? You said, and you know, for me, I think there's an assumption of what a functional home looks like. That it looks like having a father and a mother. And you have people adopting children out of selfish reasons. You know, you get the example of, you know, someone she was in her old age and she's like, oh, nobody take care of me. Personally, I feel like having children, number one, is selfish. I'm going to have kids, but I'm still saying that it's a selfish reason because you're thinking about, oh, when I get old, I want someone to take care of me. It is about you. But, you know, I'll be fascinated about this functional home. What does the functional home look like? And is this something that you are beginning to explore? Because you can have a father and a mother, and still it's not a functional home. And you have people adopting children and maltreating them. So I think that's something that was just very interesting that you mentioned. Yeah, and I think broadly my question to you is, you know, you're saying that, you know, many of these kids they need home. How do you conceive home? What is home to you? How do you conceptualize home? And I think I can really like after this, I can really few scholars I can read on home and home making and
Yeah, thank you. It's not about just colonization. You know, it has never been, you know, get colonized language, let's colonize our mind, let's colonize this and that. I'm sure there will be good in almost in Africa. Now, what I want to talk about is that have we what about the aspect of the individuality complex, the aspect of the mind, the aspect of performance in academics, like somebody studying in the US or the president of the US publishing in African journal, in Nigerian journal. You know, the person will come to our mind that probably his paper is not enough, you know, for him to publish in the jazz. Yeah? What about that? Is that not to we tend to be to our work in this case. So now, what I'm trying to emphasize that we recognize our mind in this place. We see our own work being original and competing with global today. Have we talked about this in that aspect? Because we feel that the lenses are showing that we produce less while the foreign produce much. We have that this in our society in Africa, in the African based scholar. So I think that the aspect of the colonization we talk about, we talk about the colonization project of Ghana or any location tomorrow. I think we will be discussing it, except we talk about the colonizing man. So I want you to emphasize on that aspect.
I'm sorry.
Louder, please.
Not to be more of people.
It's about then there are misplaced children. So I think also on a specific local public area. From what I've done from here, I was coming from the perspective of like cultural, when that are all at home, but just naturally displaced and don't have to be. So when you talk about adoption process being screening of Nigeria, or like Nigeria generally, let's say, or in the place of is it the children in the orphanage home that you're talking about? Just what I imagine. And okay, going to go. Yeah, because we have very fun children and they are working on that was around by respect and you know. So that okay, thank you for the
Please, you have to be audible. So, excuse me, can you please come forward because of people on Zoom?
Okay, so for the observation, I will do better next time. Thank you so much. And for the question, the one that said yes, the legal process, I agree, it is quite stressful. And if you look at it, it can be a discouraging factor as well to some of them who are willing to adopt. And again, another thing I observed while on it was this stigma of a thing. Because, and I would answer in perspective to you saying what was the great thing that I did. There was a questionnaire, fair enough. And even though these people, they were not, some of them were not willing to fill the questionnaire, because questionnaire requires that you fill your name, like your bio data. And I had to write a letter to the head of the zonal office stating that it was very confidential, it was maybe for research purpose. Before some of them could even agree to see me, I dropped the questionnaire for them, and sometimes I had to go, even for me, conducting it was very stressful. But I had to go through the proper channel, to get the result that I wanted. So the only thing I was able to achieve that would say from something different from scholars that have researched, I tried to facilitate a session, a career talk with some of these women, trying to make them see the right attitude towards it as a result because of this so-called taboo or stigma that they feel like, oh, I don't want to know that I'm trying to adopt because I don't want to know my story that I'm childless, don't want to know that, especially for the women, because most of the people who were present were women. So, and legally, like somebody suggested the question saying, how about if somebody gets married and they leaves a parent? The law does not recognize a child being adopted for like companionship. The law is looking at this child adoption as trying to give a home to this child. I feel like the law, the focus is on the child. Probably there will be like another research that will, maybe encourage people to focus more on emotional well-being of the parents that are trying to adopt. But I feel like for parents who want to adopt as well, they need the child for their own emotional support. I mean, I don't want, I don't want to be alone. Just like somebody mentioned that for selfish reasons to say, oh, I want a child to take care of me when I'm old. And sometimes it could even be out of boredom because I have babies, I have 10 babies that when they are not home, it's like, what's going on? The house feels very empty. So for some parents, even be that some of the mama like I just need a child, not necessarily focusing on the welfare of the child. And this is something to continue to work on and something that I'm open to explore in other studies. I don't know if I answered the question. Okay, and your question, Mark, say what does home feel to me? I feel like home is relative to all of us. What home feels to me might not be what home feels to me. But for me personally, home for me is a place where a child can grow in love, peace, and have emotional stability. For me, my background really makes me focus on emotional stability of the child because I feel like so many of our parents focus on, oh, I buy you this, I buy you that. But at the end of the day, what are the things that you are instilling in that child? It's not just enough to say, oh, my daddy buys me toys, my mommy buys me things. There are so many habits, there are so many good cultural traits, like no, not cultural, like traits, good habits that you can inculcate in the children to say, oh, I want you to grow up in a well-rounded environment, and by that I mean financially, mentally, emotionally stable as well. So that's what home feels to a child who has the right environment and the right guidance to be able to grow up in that manner. Thank you. I think we can answer this question. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your feedback. So I will be very brief as I try to tackle everybody's question. Gentleman here, your question is actually an affirmation of my position because during my talk, I mentioned the fact that we have this find from the other side, that is the global north, coming to publish down here actually. And we base the quality of our academics on the number of publications they're able to amass from the global north. And in the process, they make publications that is not open, publications that are not open access. At the end of the day, you are publishing a very brilliant idea. But the people that need to read this idea and translate it into life do not have access to it. That is the gatekeeping that colonization has done. What are we going to do about it? I mentioned in my in my talk that I am a philosopher. I have come to throw a dynamite at it. So I don't care whether it is radical or not. I don't believe in that process. So I already stated, like the young lady here said, that I shouldn't just leave it at that, but I should. I have stated the success stories. I have stated the success stories that they say that they have decolonized logic, they have decolonized the curriculum, they have decolonized, and I gave real life reasons, examples to show that let us close shop. This thing is a waste of time. It has not translated into anything. I agree with Prof concerning the fact that we are all speaking language at the end of the day. I was fortunate to be in Swahili in University of Dar es Salaam. When I was for a conference, I was just fortunate to sit in a class. And I saw the teacher teaching in Swahili. You know, I was lost. I felt, okay, let me see how this teaching in Swahili. Then I tried to ask myself, can this work in Nigeria? No. Definitely it cannot. But at the moment, my name is Emmanuel Lufuasia. My father, Delta Igbo, he has never taken me to the village, which is with you. My mother is from Ondo State. We were born and brought up in Lagos. It was when I finished NYSC, I said, Daddy, I'm ready to die now. I came to the Now, the point is, I went to Lasso. I speak Yoruba more than you. I can read and I can write in Yoruba. And this is the younger colleague of mine. He knows how much research I have conducted on Ifa. So if I am reading Yoruba, I can read Yoruba of Ifa and understand it more than the person that is even the Yoruba person. So I am not just doing the research that the decolonizer or the decolonization scholar says we should do. I am practicing it. But they are merely paying lip service to it. And so,
and sometimes too, we are being liberal.
Exactly.
There are some that are born and brought up in Lagos, they can't speak anything.
Thank you. Only English.
Only English.
And we mark the ability to speak the language of the colonizer as a mark of intelligence.
Yes.
He speaks English.
Yes.
He's intelligent. And he speaks the vernacular, the local language. Which is why when you see the Islamic clergies, Franz Fanon says, when you take up a language, you take up a culture. Take a look at the lifestyle of the Islamic clerics. They are behaving as if they are Arabs. They believe that speaking that language, reading the Al-Quran, is the Arabs already. So you can see the way they are thinking. They support everything Arabic. They support everything from anything Islam. They don't even know. You see somebody very Fayemi. He Fayemi, oh, Sheikh Fayemi. But he has abandoned his own tradition and has adopted the gap. That is Arab Islamization. So it's a mental thing, I shall rightly say. But that is not my own problem. My own problem is if you are calling this organization, let us call the chase. It has not, and it will not solve any practical problem. Okay, you asked about the difference between modernity and colonization. The colonization is hinged on modernity because it is in modernity that we can start talking about the colonization. So I also have here, I've already answered your question about being radical. I'm not being radical. I'm just saying, see, let us end this thing. There's nothing to talk about. But the last point I want to also make is to our madam that talked about the adoption. I want to ask, because like I said, I focus mainly on religion. What on the language, sorry. What is the Yoruba word for adoption? What is the Yoruba word for foster care? I will differentiate between the two of them. Foster care, kí ni Yoruba word for adoption? Somebody said agbato. I don't think that agbato is not adoption. So what is foster care? What is adoption in Yoruba language? Let us start with colonization.
Adoption. No, I can't correct it.
It's free out of my brain.
Or like you're taking the child and you're training for the child and training the child. So I really do.
I like that. Even their names around from town. Their names around.
Now, Oscar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agbabo. So Agbabo should be adopted.
Because
Boy is like speaking now. My feel like God is more about
When we are talking about God, everything that concerns the child, we are even God is giving the whole child on that wedding day, so we must take care of everything. The parents can only come and give a gift. But whatever responsibility they are the ones to take care of, that's our God. From childhood to our next son, or she belongs to you, or he belongs to you.
But sorry, ma, can I just chip in something? There are names around this adoption thing. Like for instance, now there are Yoruba names like Oluwafunto. Is that like God gave me to train or something like that? Because the connotation around names like this is that, oh, this is for me, something like that. Funto, Funto is a very common name. And when like older Yoruba people are like trying to analyze it, it's like somebody that is precious to you, that God specifically gave to you to, train. Funke downstairs. So careful.
Hold your sovereign. That means it's a gift of God accepted. Accepted it. And some.
Yeah.
My own perspective on the Punto is probably my perspective on Christian, whereby they believe that God is our Father, the ultimate Father, giving his own child to adopt from just to take care of that child. You are not the owner, it belongs to God. So I think we go from that perspective.
yes. So at the end of the day, I'm not settled for Okay, I think what's the first one? Professor.
Yeah.
No, I didn't ask him a question. I
Okay.
just I brought him into the idea of the content foundation calculation. About
Yes. Thank you, Prof. The lady also mentioned an in between in a discussion. Yes, I quite agree. We are active participants in colonization, and in my paper, they wanted the ontological evaluation of the Nigerian system. To avoid the escapist theory, I see ontology as beyond the foundation, and that the life of the heroes or the leaders that we currently have is a continuous bane on the society. And this bane was acted individually. So that was why I mentioned that from the first, second, and third until the fourth republic, there is nothing different because they have acted to always continue in that line. And in my conclusion, which I stated, I said the only way to resolve this dysfunctionality is for us to restructure by prohibiting and banning this same circle of persons, which in at least what is what we call the network of the dysfunction system. So fine, I quite agree with you, and that is the same point I'm trying to make. From the onset, I mentioned practicality when Dr. Imare spoke about pragmatism of decolonization. I mentioned practicality. We need to be practical about the situation. We don't need to put things into the external and it has gone beyond that. While I mentioned that was a foundation, but the other foundations, which I also highlighted, were based on conscious individual effort. So that's the summary of my discussion also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was then I really enjoy all the mentors. If you have some questions without me, I will start the conversation for that. I was thinking exactly that type of organization. So I don't want more questions to have more. Yes. Thank you, President. Thank you, everyone. And for to